How do you solve the challenge of reporting cyber operations and risk to the board or to the executive team that needs it?
Um, so I'm gonna be a little pedantic because it's like some of these things people are already, where one, you have to understand what risks they're actually looking at. When I came from Viasat, it was a lot different. The approach to risk was massively different because it's an innovation company, right? When you go to a bank, risk is everything.
Mhm.
And so understanding what the risk posture for the bank is, what the regulator's asking for, what we're concerned about. I mean, there's a lot of different factors for executive board reporting, and most of the time, it is giving the board and giving the executives the ability to make a balanced risk decision that they can defend to a regulator. And so that part is. So for us, it's providing metrics. It's providing, a lot of metrics, and answering questions over and over again until the answer is actually understood.
Mhm.
And so patience is kind of how you have to build that. So I don't know if that's the answer that you want, but that's
Okay.
it's the one that seems to be the most applicable for me, at least.
Yeah. And Josh, from a non-banking perspective, what would you say?
Um, I always take a look at the perspective. I start with why. Why does this information matter to the board? Is it a compliance thing? Is it a security thing? How does it impact the business operations? And when I can start with the why, then I can articulate the how and what we need to do to mitigate those changes. Because once they understand why it's important, why it matters to them, where the risk applies to them as a business leader, that allows me to transition into why they need to understand and why they need to either do this thing or accept the risk, transfer the risk as appropriate based off of what the why is.
Mhm. Okay, cool. And Xavier, I got a wild card here that's related, kind of on the heels of what Paul talked about. Do you feel like there's a disconnect between what you're asked to report and what the actual risk is?
Well, yes, obviously, that's a.
Okay.
Um,
So let's start with why.
Yes.
Why do you say that? Using Josh's method.
Yeah, I mean, so. We talk about metrics and reporting and like, it's like, I want to be able to tell a story, right? Everything that if I'm going to make a metric, it's to help tell a story. And so I'm trying, and so if the story is, what is my risk posture or something, that kind of broad, that that's not typically, what they're wanting to receive. Like the complexity of that answer is not something that a lot of the board and our executive leaders can comprehend. And so it's taking it and taking a specific example, a specific use case, and like I said, storyboarding that and being able to say, here's a situation that occurred. Here's what we had in place because of that, and here's what we did to mitigate or reduce that risk, and here's your business outcome, and being able to, it can start to understand different aspects of that. Like I said, that multifaceted, what is my risk posture thing?
Mhm.
It's like, here's this one facet. Let's understand that completely. And that way you've got a much better insight into all the things that we do to give you that risk posture score, right? Here's this very specific thing that they can walk away with and then they can tell somebody else. And so that, I think, storytelling aspect of our metrics is very important.
Okay, cool. Because I guess what we've seen is it's almost an old saying at this point is compliance is not security, right? So heavily regulated industries have to do certain things. Doesn't mean that it's secure necessarily. It's checking the box at oftentimes, right? So coming up with that way that is usable in everybody's organization or your organization is really important.
I think it's also difficult for the board and for executives to translate what they're being asked into asking us
Mhm.
Right. So for us, we tell them like, I don't own the risk. I inform the risk. I don't own it. Right. And so if they ask me, how many events, how many P1 events have we had in the last 6 months? The answer is 0. Okay. But that's not really what they're asking. They're asking that because the regulators asking that question in response to something, hey, we just need to check this box. But I find that if I over answer, I just confuse the crap out of everybody.
Yeah.
No matter how much of a story that I can tell, once it gets out of the InfoSec world,
Right.
It's the Charlie Brown teacher. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they want to understand.
There's a lot of layers to the
Yeah.
onion, right? So
They want to understand. That's the good thing.